What if you were able to sit down for lunch with some of the greatest leaders in the world? What would you ask? What would they say? Welcome to the Lynch with a Leader podcast, where you're invited to join us in learning the spiritual principles behind big success. Here's your host, Mike Lynch.
What's it mean to have a championship culture? What's it mean to have a championship team? And then when you get it, how do you sustain it? That's what we're going to talk about in this episode of Lynch with a Leader. If I've never met you before, my name is Mike, and it is my honor to be on this leadership journey with you, as we're all seeking to be the leaders that we were created to be in the spaces and places that God has put us. Well, there's no doubt building champions is not something everybody can do. But the ones that do, you see why. Today, we get to sit down with somebody who understands that. Her name is Coach Patty Gasso. She's been leading Oklahoma softball for years now. They have won 8 national championships, 4 in a row, which is a NCAA record. She is elite. She lives in a stratosphere of coaches most never get to, but when you listen to her, there's an art behind it. It didn't just happen. She didn't just fall into it. I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. So she sustained excellence for a long time, in and out of now we're in the NIL years and the portal years, but she keeps on winning with Oklahoma softball, and you're going to hear why. So whether you're leading a business, whether you're a coach, whether you are a mayor of a community, a police chief of a community, you're in real estate, building teams, wherever you're at, there's something in this conversation for you. She was my guest back on episode 40, and I'm going to tell you something. We just add to it today. So wherever you're listening from today, I want you to pull out something to write with, type with, scribble into, because there's some good stuff for you today. And I want you to pull up a chair, and I want you to listen in to this conversation with Coach Patty Gasso. Well, Coach Gasso, thank you so much for joining me again on Lynch with a Leader. It is an honor to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, it is a joy, and I get to know your son. I get to spend most every Monday with him when he tunes into our Bible study. What's it like watching your kids grow up and now coaching with JT? How is that as a mom, getting to do this life with your son?
It is wonderful. It has its challenges for sure. I'm just blessed that both of my boys, when I was coaching and they were young, I really felt like I was not doing a good job as a mother. I wasn't there for them. I missed a lot of things they were doing. I would leave on the road to recruit or we're playing, and sometimes I couldn't take them with us. So I had to count on a lot of people for their help. And I just felt a time where I wasn't being a good mother. I wasn't being a good coach because I was worrying about my kids a lot. And the wonderful JT Gasso, when he was, I felt like I was going to go back, leave Oklahoma, go back to California. And it was probably before the year 2000, and JT made the comment of like, if you go back to California, I mean, you're not going to coach. You're not the mother that we know. We're doing fine. We're watching. We're really not watching. We're playing wall ball with all of the siblings of our athletes, and we're just having a great time. We're getting our homework done. I mean, if we're going to leave here, it's just not going to be the same. You don't have to worry about us. And in that moment right there, I knew that to keep going forward.
That's
and
so
here
good.
we are.
That's so good.
A wise 12-year-old.
A wise 12-year-old. Who would have ever guessed? Who would have ever guessed? Do you feel like coaching is a calling for you? Do you feel like that it's way beyond a job?
I do. I didn't know that then. I mean, my mother was a really great athlete that was like a closet athlete because she was living back in the season. It wasn't cool to be a female athlete back then, but she loved sports. And so when we were growing up, we lived right next to a park. Literally, my back door opened up into the park. My mom would come home from work and come over, and she was coaching us. And very young, I was very young. But her and I connected over the love of sport. It's usually father-son, but this was mother-daughter. My dad was not in our picture. So we connected through the Dodgers. So happy for the Dodgers. But everything Los Angeles, we would watch, actually would listen to the portable radio, actually. I am that old back then. I learned a lot from Vince Scully and listening to him on the radio. I'm just closing my eyes and visualizing what he was explaining. So I learned a lot about the sport through him and listening and watching. But my mom, I just knew that if there was a way back then that I could ever be a teacher and a coach, and could females coach in college? I didn't even know that back then. There really wasn't a lot of female athletics back then. But I wanted to do it because my mom would have been phenomenal at it. And I thought, I love this. I love working with the young people. I love being outdoors. And at that time, I wasn't thinking, oh, I can really bring my faith, because my faith wasn't where it is now. But being able to merge the two has been the greatest blessing for me and my career. And maybe we're going to be talking about that, so I'll stop there.
That's good. Yeah, 34 seasons. 34 seasons that you've been involved. What's changed the most in the game over those years, and what's changed the most about you as a leader over those years?
What's changed the most is, I think, the athleticism of the athlete, and really the training and the commitment that they have as young people. So I remember travel ball was just being a fun way to play the game.
That's right.
Period. And so the intensity that has gone into it, where there's a lot of money being spent for kids to go to camps, a lot of money on lessons, services, a lot of money to be on a travel ball team and go on a trip where you're having to get hotel rooms almost every weekend for some of these athletes. So it's become very expensive. It's become, oh my gosh, it's just pressure for young people. The attitude for some of these athletes on the field is looking to see what coaches are here. Oh my gosh, Oklahoma's here. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And when athletes do that, I see that they're doing that. And it does not help them. So I think the money that's gone into it, if you want to talk about, I don't really need to go there because everybody knows what's going on in college. Yep. It's great for the athlete. It's very hard to coach. Yeah. Because there's so many things, and they're going to they talk about how I have changed is understanding that they need a breath. Right. So their mental health and wellness, I learned a lot about, because I listened to my athletes about it, and it's real. And the things that are, when you have a lot of fans and a lot of action on social media, and sometimes they're making a living that way, and they're having out on their off days or out doing things, video shoots and things. So it's gone from, this is, in college, back when I was young, you would play a game, you'd shake the hand of a coach and say, that was fun. That was fun. You made us better. And we were all friends. It was cool. Now it's like, it's different.
Yeah, are they recruiting my kid while they're shaking their hands in line? Yeah. It's a whole different ball game.
I'll leave it there. It is. It's not quite as enjoyable with like the other side and the freedom of, looking at each other and smiling and things. It's just a different intensity.
So you've experienced tremendous success. How do you, because I think there's so many leaders listening to this call, when you're at the pinnacle of your game, and your game is softball, other people are in business, when you're at the pinnacle, how do you keep yourself motivated as a leader to keep growing in the art of leading and coaching and doing all the things that you do?
Yeah, I think the thing that I do, I had to change. I had to make a change as the athletes were becoming a little bit different and they need to be heard. So the thing I did the most was listen. And I took each one of our athletes out for a meal and we'd sit down and we didn't talk about softball. I would just listen. I would ask questions and just let them talk because I wanted them to, one, feel comfortable expressing what they're feeling to me and see me as a normal person and not as Coach Gasso. And two, I wanted them to see that I could understand what they're going through. And there's a lot of tears. There's a lot of that, which is important. I really need them to know that I am there to help them. I'm there to support them. And it might, to some coaches, say, God, that's so soft. That is this generation. And if we are just hammering them and you're weak, you're soft, they're done. They will disconnect from you. So they need guidance. They need love. They need understanding. But they also want organization. They want to be pushed. They love the structure. They need it. They like a plan. They always want to know in advance what we're doing and in the way of timing and the week. They want planning. It's quite different. I could tell you the 2000 national championship team comes around me and is like, you're so soft. What's wrong with you? Gosh, these guys, if they could never get through what you put us through. And I'm like, you might be right.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And they're still great athletes and they're still getting it done.
That's so good. That is so good. You know, achieving excellence is one thing. Sustaining excellence is another thing. What are some of the pressures that come from sustained excellence? You know, everybody expects you to be playing at the end of the year. They expect you to be one of the final teams playing every year. What are the pressures that come on you as a coach with that sustained excellence?
I'm feeling it every day now.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think I'm made for people thinking we can't. Or 4P, go 4P. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Are you really saying that to me right now? But at the same time, I needed to find out how to manage myself and our team so that we use that as fuel and not so much as pressure. And this is where God comes in. So I'm very fortunate in the last 4 years to have a pretty faith-based team. And they go after it on the field. They're very emotional. They play with a lot of passion, but they also have understood, and this is one phrase that changed my life, to be honest. I remember before the World Series, I think we had just lost our first game to, I can't remember who it was, a team that wasn't expected to be there. And everybody was like big eyes, freaking out. Oh my gosh. Oh, we lost our first game. And one of our athletes made the comment like, you guys just relax. Look, the end is already written. It's in the book. If it's in the book and it's already written, then what are we afraid of? Let's just go play. Let's just go play. Take our talents and put it out there like God intended it to be and not worry about the ending. And that changed our whole program because everybody heard it. Everybody listened. And that was a game, that was the season where we lost our first game and we were the first team ever to come back through the losers bracket.
Wow.
We played the most game. Actually, it was us and Florida, I think, that both came through the losers bracket. And we played as many possible games as you could play at the World Series because we were constantly in the losers bracket. We got to the championship series and it went 3 games, of course. So it was a wonderful lesson learned that I will never forget. And our players just really bought into understanding that if you're worrying, there was a freedom about them. That they kept over the last 4 years, and they used it every year, and it was amazing. And what the beauty of it is, they sit at the press conference and they just share their hearts, and the reporters are sitting there like, okay, can we ask another question? Every question a reporter asked, it was like, because God had a hand on us, and they're not writing anything. And like they walked out of there with nothing. But our players, I'm so proud of the example that they left. It inspired me to be more vocal in that way on the press row as well.
That's so good. You know, it's so funny. You think, well, you're at a place you can't learn from your players, and that's a perfect example. You can learn from your players, and you need to learn from your players. How do you, as the leader of all this, keep the main thing the main thing? How do you keep yourself from being sucked down the lane of the only way this team is a success is with a ring at the end of the year, when maybe that's not the purpose for this year? How do you keep yourself, because it is so hard as a leader in any industry to keep the main thing the main thing? How does Patty Gasso do that?
Well, that's a good question. I don't change. I stay very consistent with my style day to day. I'm not up and down. I got to count on my assistants as well. All of us on our coaching staff are all Christians, so we really have a different kind of connection that we hold each other accountable, or if someone sees me going off on the wrong track, they'll pull me back. So we look out for each other in that way. There is a lot of social media, a lot of attention that comes to this team and to us. One thing that I have always been, and I really try to keep our team, that is humble. I mean, this is God's glory, not our glory. And all the trophies that we have, and all the rings that we have, a few of our athletes will showcase that. And that's on their own time.
That's right.
But for us, when you walk into our new beautiful stadium, when you walk into their locker room, you don't see trophies. You don't see OU softball everywhere. It's more of a home. I want them to feel like they can live there and live in peace. But we're humble. We hold up the trophy, we thank the Lord, we put the trophy in the case, and we just keep going. And I love the challenge. I love when people believe that we can't. I understand how the world works, where everybody's loving the underdog. That's and right. Not loving the excellence of a team. And I'm like, I get it. Sometimes I'm in that place. But I hope you don't miss the absolute elite style of softball that's being played, because you hate the Sooners. And so that is really me getting into our program and telling them we're more than just softball players. Keep your feet on the ground, understand who you are. Keep your heart golden. Don't let it get black and angry and hateful, and don't respond back to hate, because these people that are trying to see us fail, they don't know us. They don't belong in our locker room, in our facility, in your head, within your eyes. And it's very hard to keep our athletes from looking at those things. But the main thing for us is Jesus.
That's so
With
good.
the main thing staying the main thing, we understand where to keep our eyes. And again, honestly, not every player on my team is faith-based, but they see it. I mean, if there's a little crack in the door that we could get them into where the Lord could take over their heart, that's what we're doing. But some of the coolest, most beautiful images I've ever seen was our players getting the entire team together on an away trip. This happened probably 4 times in the last 4 years or so. An athlete getting baptized in a swimming pool. I've had athletes get baptized. I probably should say this out loud, but somebody snuck in the training room because it was so cold outside, and they would go into the indoor little running pool. So just watching, every athlete is there, and every athlete is crying, because you can feel the presence of the Lord there, and that at least something is being felt, whether they act on it or not. They just see messages every day without pressing or pushing, but just they see a difference. And hopefully they want to explore, what is that? What is it that you have that I don't have? Because I can see how happy you are, and I can see it in your eyes. I could see it through your speech. It's happening. The Lord is working in ways that I would never, ever believe.
I was talking to JT earlier this morning, and he was telling me, you guys graduated a lot of players, and you got a lot of new players coming in. And so the OU culture is there in place from former teams with players that are left over. How do you recreate it year to year? So, because what you ended with in the spectacular ending to last year, well, that is now gone on the shelf, and we're beginning a brand new season now. How do you keep the heartbeat of who OU is year to year and keep that the basis of the culture the same year to year while letting it adapt to the girls?
Yeah, that really comes through me. And what's important for me to do is evolve with the athletes and the program. But I think the one thing JT would tell you that makes me different is I still hold them to standards. So there's still an expectation. If discipline needs to happen, there is discipline. My expectations are always high, and I push them to that place. OU softball is not for every athlete, and every athlete is not
That's right.
for OU softball. So I really make sure that, and again, I'm not out there looking just for Christians. I'm looking for those that have a maturity in them and a calm but a fight and leadership and knowing that this isn't going to break them because our training is tough. I've worked them really hard. My expectations are very high. There's a lot of do it again, do it again. Do it again. Instead of, all right, line up on the line, let's run. It's do it again. And if we can't get it right, then we're going to step off on the side and do it while we're doing something else. That is just the expectation, but the players come in with that expectation. They know. We talk to them in the recruiting process, and once they commit, they understand what this looks like, and they watch it on TV. And this is going to be a challenging season. I lost 10 players. I have 14 new players. All 10 players were all pretty much seniors. So it's fun, though, because for the last 4 years, I haven't had to coach. My attitude is stay out of their way. They know what they're doing. Don't try to be that coach that's trying to be noticed or, have a big role in it. My role is very small. It's like the orchestra leader that just kind of moves their finger, tells you what, how to do it, but they play the music. They play beautiful sounds. It's not because of me. It's because of them. And that's the main thing, is to make sure that we are not getting too boastful or big or allowing them to as well. We grind, we push, and at the end of the game, we shake hands, win or lose, and the Sooners have a knack for, if they lose a game, they're coming back with look out, here we come, because they felt it, and they need that ouch every once in a while to wake them up.
If you were talking to a young coach or a young leader that's going into a company or a coach that's going into a program, and they said, Coach Gasso, what are 2 or 3 things, if you were me, would be the first things that you did when you got to that program? What would some of those be?
The first thing I would do is talk with every person in the program and get to know them, sit down. I'll take my notes on, things that I like, or maybe things that I might think might be a problem. I would talk about culture is tremendous. I could have the greatest team in the world, but if they can't get it together in the locker room, and with the change of scholarships now, we could have 25 female athletes in one locker room 18, 19 is hard, but it's going to be another level of management, but it is really getting them to understand the culture. And I guess I would say there's non-negotiables in this program. And that is, you treat everyone with respect. You are not going to be in the locker room with negative comments or being that negative. And I've got enough athletes and captains and leaders that will come to me. And I tell the captains, get it, squash it, make it stop. And if they can't, they'll come to me and I will make it squash. I really don't like distractions at all. And that's one thing that I talk to these guys is just don't be that distraction. Don't be that name that always comes up when we're talking as a coaching staff. You don't want to be that name. Also, one of our mantras is if you settle, you surrender. So it's work ethic that goes to another level until you figure out how to get it. You're not going to quit until you can figure it out, and someone's going to help you along the way. So I think those are a few things, a few ways that are like, if I was going into a new team, I would just set it out there. Like, here are our non-negotiables, and this is a must. And if you can't follow these non-negotiables or understand them, then you don't belong here. So it comes out of my mouth the very first day I see them. And we're there for a little while, just really making them understand how you live in this program. You
used a word there a second ago that I've heard another coach use a lot. It's the word standard. What's the difference between standards and rules? Why choose the word? I think it's an interesting use of the word, because I agree with it. As a coach, and you're setting you're setting what we're all about. Why is a standard different than these are the team rules?
I think this generation hates rules. I think everybody hates rules. Kids hate rules. Standard is, to me, a way of life. This is the way we're going to live in this facility, outside of this facility. We represent Oklahoma softball, especially in a small town like Norman, everywhere you go, wherever you are. And it happens to me as well. I mean, you get people recognize, they want to come up to you. And the standard of Oklahoma softball is that you're pleasant with people, or they feel what our souls are like. People like this program because of the athletes and who they are and how gracious they are. And you can see Christ through them because they're very gracious, and they'll do anything to please fans and donors and so forth. So it's all hands on deck now, because anybody can be involved in your program, and from donors speaking to you at any time. So that's just the standard, is the way we're going to be living. And I think they understand that.
I love that. I think some people can sit as armchair quarterbacks and go, well, gosh, if I had that much talent, we would win. And I don't agree with that at all. I think that coaching is an art, and the great coaches are the people that can do it the best. You get in some girls that every program in the country would want to have. And then you probably have some gamers. You got some people you see something in, not as highly recruited maybe, not as many stars behind their name. How do you handle players differently? Do you look at players differently? Do you handle some with kid gloves, some you're a little tougher on? How do you handle that as a coach?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I said earlier, is that I really need to know them. So I could say to them, look, I'm going to push you. And they're going to know that. There's some athletes that don't need to be pushed because they understand and they do it on their own. I leave them alone. So if I've got a really good team, I don't really need to say a lot. If they're living under the standards of what we're talking about, or our so-called championship mindset is really the mantra that we've been living with for quite a long time. If they understand it, I'm just a spectator at practice. I'm watching it. When I have to step in, I step in. But once they get it and they figure it out, it's just nice to sit back and watch it. And that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years, is just sitting back and watching it. The hardest art I had to learn is stay out of their way. Because sometimes I would get so frustrated with, love this team that I've had. They're on their way out now. They're getting into coaching and doing the things they want to do. But the passion it past the point sometime of like arrogance versus passion. And I thought, do I really stop this right now? Because one thing I said to them was, be unapologetic for being an elite female athlete. If you are passionate about a walk, why are we apologizing if we know that 85% of the time a walk's coming around to score? That's something to celebrate. But they celebrate it. They're very full of passion and energy, and they would celebrate it by throwing the bat down like, what is this going to look like?
Yeah.
I mean, we're supposed to be humble. What does this look like? But I told them, be unapologetic, because they're watching male athletes do things a million times worse. And so we are not playing to be liked. And that's what I had to figure out. We're playing because we're trying to win. We're playing with the passion. They really let out their feelings. If I said, be unapologetic, but don't do that. Be unapologetic, but don't say that, it would be hypocritical for me. So I had to sit back and really let them go. And there were times I'm like, oh, gosh, but I didn't want to stop who they really were. And that was probably the hardest coaching job, is feeling like you're like, stay out of the way, but then feeling like maybe I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
Because I'm just kind of watching. And then it's like, you don't stay out of it. Stay out of it and let them do it. I think if I would have gotten into it, I would have messed it up. And I've never been to the point where I'm like, okay, just worry about calling your signals and just leave them alone. Don't need to talk to them. Maybe slap them on the back, but stay out of their way. And that was the hardest thing in my career that I had to learn.
Wow. Would you say there's a line that if it gets crossed, I'll step in? If they're showing the other team up, or is there a line there, or do you go, I'll just deal with it after the game?
I probably, with this last group that I've had, I would have probably addressed it after the game, because they feel things, and it's really cool. They feel things so big that if I would have walked in and said, Alyssa Brito, don't slam your bat anymore, it would have changed her. It would have bothered her, would have hurt her. Like, well, I've been doing it all season. Why would you stop me now? So that is me kind of knowing. I know what Alyssa Brito would respond like. I know what Riley Boone might feel if I did that. I know that Jada Coleman might shut down or not say a lot if I would have done that. So, and I think you either love them or you hate them. Good. But the passion that they play with and the elite level that they played with, it was really something to see every day. World Series were happening at practice. I mean, we compete every single day. There's some kind of competitive element every day where they're trying to win. And that group just loved to win at anything. At hopscotch, at Uno, at anything you play, they are going to go all out to find a way to win.
Do you think that's one of your secret ingredients? That there's competition every day that's breeding competition when the real games are happening?
Yes, without question. Without question.
So good. What's the biggest adversity you've had to walk through as a coach? What's made you almost pull out the white hanky out of your pocket and go, I surrender, I'm done, I'm ready for retirement, I'm ready to get out of this? What's been the biggest thing you've had to walk through?
Honestly, I think the hardest when I was questioning myself is when I first got to OU, because the players went on strike. Like, we're not playing for her. They wanted someone else to be the coach. So when I had my first team meeting, there was like 6 people there. I'm like, what am I doing? I gave up a beautiful job at Long Beach City College where I'm out in the sun playing racquetball every day. I'm like coaching softball, and, it's just simple. So I think the hardest thing I went through was probably my first 3 years of coaching and trying to figure out how to get the right athlete. I was given some athletes and it was hard to connect with them. But there's some, you'll see your team and you'll go, those 3 athletes, I need them. I need them. I got to find a way to get them with me. And those were the challenges that I had as a young coach in a brand new program. And that's kind of like when you're teaching too, like back in California as a 24-year-old, 23, 22-year-old, I'm student teaching, and I get a roster of 60 students, not athletes, and saying, okay, you're a student teacher, here's a roster, make sure everyone's there, non-suits sit over there, organize them. However, you got volleyball. You got to do volleyball. So first thing I did was let me find out who the cool kids are. Let me find out who are the ones that they're listening to, the better athletes, but the ones that everyone is going to. Grab them, bring them on my side, and now I've got 4 coaches instead of 1.
So good.
And that helped me get through that. And that was a valuable lesson that I learned even with teams today, is I know the players I need in my pocket.
How quickly, so you're recruiting all the time. The recruiting never stops. How quickly now do you know when you sit down with an athlete, that's my kind of, but we're taking the game on the field. The game on the field is the game on the field, right? But the personality, they will fit in my locker room. I resonate with them. They're coachable. How quickly do you pick up on that?
Pretty quickly. I think you said the word personality, and some athletes come in and they're so scared when they're on a recruiting trip, or they're scared to talk to me, or very uncomfortable. There's a fine line. I don't want you to come in and be so loud and vocal, and that is a warning sign to me, but very, very shy and like insecure. I could feel that pretty quickly as well. So I want an athlete that's pretty confident in what they're doing, but also expressing it in a way that's not arrogant, cocky. You know, if I do an in-home visit and you're like, look at all my trophies, I'd say, thank you, bye. I think you keep the phrase you kept saying, make the real thing the real thing. I want a player to give me the real thing. Or a recruit, give me the real
And while you're dealing with them, you're dealing with parents. And I think every coach from every level says that I really enjoy the kids, and parents are a lot. And they used to just be a lot in high school. Now I'm hearing from all my college coaching friends, they now have their phone number and are more than happy to maybe sometimes tell them, you know, some of their thoughts and how their child, they don't want to interfere, but here's my interference. If you could tell a high school parent something from a seasoned college coach that you said, if you would just hear this, this could change your life, what would it be?
All right, here it goes. I think parents are trying so hard to get their child to be great that we're actually doing the opposite. And my husband and I were those parents as well. I think we want it so badly, we don't even know what's coming out of our mouth. Support your kid. If it's that long ride home that they regret, do you know who has to fix that? Me. Because when they come to our program and I can feel that something isn't right, I really try to get to the nitty-gritty of it. You need to build your kid up and decide if softball is a sport that they're absolutely in love with and want to do. If you say, okay, hey, today we're going to our defensive coach and then we're going to go hit and then we're going to go lift, you're going to burn these kids out. And more kids are saying no thank you these days because of the commitment and what they went through, which was not a good experience. So make it a positive, supportive experience. I'm watching. This is the truth. It used to be when college athletes, freshmen come in and they're homesick and they have a calendar up on the wall and they're marking down, like, take that down, don't do that, just focus on what we're doing. And that athletes now are a little more well-adjusted, like they're ready to, get into it. They would call home back then probably 4 or 5 times a day. You know who's calling now? The parents.
That's right.
The parents are calling the app. Why didn't you take my call? You don't need me anymore? What? You don't need me? I'm not important to you? Playing like gaslighting some of these athletes. The hardest thing to do, but the most important thing in life is to let your child fly, cut the cord, let their wings spread and let them experience life. Because when you do that, they're going to respect you and love you so much more. They just got to figure it out. And eventually they do. But if it's a constant, call me every day, tell me what practice was like, they're telling me, gosh, I just want to relax. So it's like, let your child learn to grow into a very strong, independent, smart young woman who will love you a million times more because you trust that she can do it, versus having, like I'm saying, just be the orchestra leader and let her play the music. And she'll always come back. Always, always, always. And that's what I'm seeing. The biggest change I'm seeing is parents like, oh, what am I going to do without my daughter? I'm like, what? What are we talking about? Now, maybe I'm wrong,
No.
but that's not normal to me. It's, you raised your kid, they're 18. Let's see what they learn from you.
That's right.
How cool is that going to be? And trust them and love them, and on the phone, support them, so forth. So I think that's the biggest message.
Yeah, as bad as the payphones were when I was off in college playing baseball, and I would call home and they're like, you know how much money this is costing? Let's make this short. I'm like, what? You don't miss me? Well, we got to get off. We're going broke down here. So, and the old MCI calling card, it was tough, man. You didn't have the access I had to my kids.
Well, that's a good excuse, too. I didn't have money to call you.
I think they really were glad I was gone, though, Coach. I'll be really honest with you. I think they're like, it's about time we got that boy out of the house.
Yeah, well, but parents need to, you
They
know,
do.
that you did a great job. Now you get to go live your life a little bit as well.
You know, it's so funny. I remember a sports psychologist telling me one time, he said, Mike, the one thing I've learned in 15 years of pro ball, you can't flip somebody else's switch. If I flip their switch and motivate them, it's temporary. Every athlete's got to learn to flip their own switch on. And what you find so many times is what you're describing is the parents keeping the switch on, taking them to hitting lessons, speed and agility, workouts. And yes, they are well conditioned. And yes, all things. And yes, they don't enjoy the game. They lost the love of the game because of that. How do you balance that? I want the best for my child. My kids are grown now, but I want the best for my child, but they don't want it yet. But I see it in them. How do you think you balance that?
I think you just kind of let them figure it out. Like they want 5-year-olds to decide what they're going to do. I love athletes that play multiple sports.
Yes.
I think it's very healthy. I think they're more athletic when they do that. So you don't need to put them, when they're 9 or 10 years old, say, Even junior high, let them experience it. I'd say unfortunately, around we've got 8th graders, even some 7th graders on our recruiting lineup, right? So I know it's early, but it's early because they're making it early. The best rule that we changed was allowing us to not talk to 7th and 8th graders, but wait until these guys are now juniors in high school.
Good.
Now you're talking to a little more mature athlete. You're able to watch their development. But I have an athlete she's outstanding and out in California. She plays softball. She plays flag football, which has become a big sport
Huge.
in some of these states. And she loves them both. And I love that she loves them both. But she chose softball, and I'm not stopping her. Like, don't play. I'm afraid you're going to get hurt. If you play volleyball, don't play volleyball. I just want you to stick with softball. I never, ever, ever have told an athlete that, because I love that they're staying active and playing and competitive, but just doing something different. Even me, 24 hours a day, 365 of softball, I wouldn't be sitting here. I would not be doing this. So the young athletes feel this as well. They've got a lot going on their plate as young people than we used to. I mean,
That's
we
right.
just went out and played.
That's exactly
That's what
right.
we did. We played. Now they got a phone. Now they got video games. Now they've got so many other things that can take their attention. They're making TikToks and doing all this and that. That's where the world went. And it's hard to combat that. But letting them play other sports keeps them more away from their phone, too.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Wow.
And the game is so much more technical, and there's so much more information, and there's swing analysis and all the things. So it is a lot. Final question of the day, Coach.
Yeah.
If I could gather players from all your seasons and we pile them in OU Stadium, in this beautiful, beautiful stadium, and I were to say, Describe the effect and the difference Coach Gasso made in your life. What would you want them to say, and what would mean the most for you to hear?
That she opened the door to the kingdom, or just made a small reason why I want to pursue Christ. That's first and foremost. I didn't figure this out. It took me a while to figure out what my purpose was in Oklahoma. I know it now. So that's number one. Number two, she turned me from a girl into a woman. Number three, she made me unafraid, bold, lioness-like, the hunter, not the hunted. She has made me pursue things when I was afraid, so that I'm more brave, I'm more attacking of what I want, and that I embrace challenges, even if I know they're hard. I'm not afraid to fail. As long as I put everything in, I'm not afraid to fail. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. I try to get these athletes to do things they're very uncomfortable with. So heights sometimes, it's hard to watch because you're like, oh, I feel that you don't like this. But when you can face a fear, it's so empowering. And I think that's another word, empowered, that I made them empowered to be strong mothers, a wonderful wife that's very family oriented, if that's what you choose, but just someone that people want to look up to, that people want to go to for help or advice.
So rich. I got off that call with Coach Gasso and just, like I was with Coach Hurdle, like I was with Coach Madison, I see why people perform for them. I see why people excel for them, and I see why they get the best out of athletes. But it's so applicable to any area of life. Thank you, Coach Gasso, for taking time out of your schedule to pour into us, because you sure left us better. And I tell you what, man, we're all trying to build a championship culture, no matter what field we're in. And to hear from the best of the best is a gift. And she said something in there. She talked about it's not a go run and it's a punishment. It's a do it again. Let's do it again. I was listening to a podcast with Nick Saban, and he talked about let's get it right. Let's get it right. There's something about do it again people that they're just fun to be around because they're going to work till they get it right. So good. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating or a review for us. It does help other people find their way to the podcast. Share it with a friend. Always means the world. And always subscribe. Man, that is the best way to make sure you never miss an episode. Well, we get to sit down with a connector of connectors, Brad Lomenick, in our next episode and talk about the power of connection. And it's going to be a good one. So once again, thanks for joining us. Go out today, love God, love people, and use the place that you are serving in to live sent. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Lynch with a Leader podcast with your host, Mike Lynch. If you enjoyed this episode, you can help more people hear it by subscribing and leaving a review wherever you may be listening. For full episode notes and more spiritual leadership resources, visit MikeLynch.com.